Okay, so you got the recording?
I got the recording, all yours.
Got it. Welcome, everyone. It is Wednesday, April 3rd, and it is 7:01 p.m. I'd like to call the Parking Commission meeting to order for the month of April. And I'd also like to ask for a motion to approve the draft of the March minutes that Stacy sent out a week or so ago. Marley, and second by Kevin. Great. And then I'm just going to pull up the agenda in front of me. I probably should have printed it, but that's just more paper. All right, so moving on. We welcome again, Tiger. Thank you so much for attending and walking us through all of your many plans last month. We all really learned a lot and enjoyed the chance to get to speak with you. So thanks again.
No problem. Thanks for having me. So today we were going to talk a little bit about, excuse me, about Morse Court. I'm sharing my screen. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
It looks like you can maybe do it in slide view.
Make it, yeah, I haven't made that yet, but
Okay.
I just want to make sure everybody can see it first. So we had said that we had plans for several lots. Those are in play at present that we talked about last time, and the one that we said we would come back and revisit was Morse Court. So we took a preliminary look at Morse Court, and this is an aerial view of it. In this area, just the boxed area, the primary lot itself contains 88 spaces. When I went out there with Maria Coppola, our town engineer, we measured some of the spaces, and some of them vary from 7.5 feet wide to 8.5 feet wide, 7.5 being quite substandard. And the majority of them seem to be in the 8.5 range, 8.5 range throughout. But again, we were asked to see if we couldn't make them wider and a little bit more compliant. We spoke to the town planner, and the town regulations state that depending upon the parking angle, they'll tell you what your curb length would be. That's the length of the stall, or the width of the stall along the curb line, and then the stall depth, which is actually how long it is for length of car. And our standards for a 90-degree parking space is 9 by 20 with a 24-foot vehicular aisle, two-way. If we were to have one-way circulation, it'd be still 24 feet, and that's in order to allow the car to back out into the space, into the circulation area, and allow the car to actually be able to clear the parking space to get back out into the drive aisle. 90-degree parking is determined to be the most efficient parking if you can do it. So we took a look at that. Maria took a look at that. She took a look at a couple of other angled parking. But it should be noted that even though the regulations say 9 by 20, there is a caveat in section 6.24, which says that the commission can allow the stall depth to be shortened to 18 feet instead of 20 if want to reduce the amount of, so we won't reduce the amount of spaces, and if it's determined that it's in the best interest of the lot itself and the village. But that's a commission, the P&Z commission decision. So again, a very preliminary look. Maria did a sketch, and this was our best version of what we could come up with. We're not considering to repave the lot. We're right now just considering to restripe it. So it's not being repaved. So we're not going to take it out of service, not going to do any other measures associated with it. Just strictly if we were to restripe it to a 9 by 18, what would happen? And if we did that, we would lose 11 spaces. That's about the best we're going to do at this location. again, we gotta take another look and go out and verify widths and lengths of the actual lot and make sure that we're correct, but our preliminary view looks at the fact that to make the lot close to compliant, meaning a 9 by 18 space instead of a 9 by 20, we would need, this would cause a reduction of 11 spaces. The only other further approval from yours would be to go to P and Z for an 8-24 review, according to the planner. Because this is a change and a reduction in parking spaces, which would be considered a change as far as the state statute. That's whether or not it complies with the plan of conservation and development. And we would have to ask P and Z for a review, hopefully receive a positive review, and then they would say it was okay to do this. But this is we're constrained by a lot of things in the lots, not the best size or width for parking itself, but our best view at present to get it up to close to the standard is would be an 11 space reduction. So if you have any questions or.
Did you look at it then? What would be the loss of spaces at the angle it currently is with just making all of them uniformly 8.5 feet? Because it looks like we're losing a ton on the side there where all of the EV, chargers are. And I think our goal is to, increase the number of those chargers ultimately.
Yeah, you can look to increase the chargers there. She looked at one other version and on an angled space, for angled spaces, we were losing 15 spaces. That's why, because the 90 degree is more efficient than the angles, and at the angle she had one at 15 space reduction. And then to try to go from 9 to your point, from 9 to 8.5, you gain a half a foot per space, but you only have, I think it's 16 or 17 spaces in the row. So you gain 8 feet, you almost don't gain a space back, if you will, by going from 8.5 to the 9 or the 9 to the 8.5, because it's only, as mentioned, it's only a half foot per space, and you got to get all the way to 9 feet, right? Or 8 feet to go. So you need a certain amount in the row. So I think it was, if we went down to 8.5, we might have been able to gain back 4 spaces, but you're 8.5 across the board. But I'd have to look at that again.
Right.
It's not,
And I was surprised to see that it's 24 feet regardless of the angle, because it would occur, it sort of strikes me that you would need more feet at 90 degrees.
Yeah.
Well, for two vehicles to pass, that's why it's at 24. Okay, so two-way direction. If you go to one, then yes, you're correct. To try to pull the space out on an angle, you need less width on an angle. So if you look at the bottom vehicular aisle width on a one-way circulation, but the problem you have there now is people don't know which way to go. You come from the outside to the inside.
Right.
It's not very efficient as it's laid out. And it necessarily doesn't have you lose anything according to Maria's calculations. So, but that's, so yeah, so you're looking at the 90, you've got 24 regardless. And then if you reduce it down at depending upon if you went to one-way circulation or circulation from there, you could then shorten the aisles again. But that's the preliminary look. So it just comes down to a look on a path forward.
Because people back up along that one way too. So I think it would be even harder for somebody to come out at 90 degrees when there's backed up, there's 3 or 4 SUVs behind you and you're trying to back up, back out of the space from a 90-degree angle than at a vertical angle. I don't know.
90 is the most efficient according to the town. So that's what we're seeing.
Drew wants to.
Sure.
No, so sorry to interrupt. I just think there's a couple notes here. One, I think, is to look at the existing layout as sort of vaporware. Like there's not really 88 spaces. They're not full spaces. So I feel like we're already being compromised. If you're lucky, I guess you find the right space for the car, but given what everybody drives these days. So I feel like 11 spaces loss is not, there's not really 11 full spaces. So that's number one. Number two, I think having the right width would make it easier for the larger vehicles to back out, because then they could really crank the wheel. When they're narrow as they are now, it just makes it difficult now. We were slanted, but I'm thinking of the Playhouse lot, which has a similar problem, and that's at 90 degrees. It's very hard to kind of get out of there efficiently without being able to crank the wheel. So the width, I think the width is super important for these dimensions. Anyway, that's it.
Marley, Kevin, Katie, any thoughts?
If it were still one way, would you get all those spots back along Main Street there?
No, not necessarily. According to our discussion this morning, no.
No.
There was a thought that we might be able to, one of these parallel spots could be converted back to a where you're coming in on the 90 degree, but again, it's 22 feet long, right? So you're only going to gain 3, you lose 1, you gain 3, if you will, so you need 27 feet, 999 to 22 feet long. You're kind of cheating into the next space. You lost 1 space because that was the parallel one. You put 3 back in again, so it's a net of 2. So the thought was that might not necessarily be the way to go, and you couldn't necessarily get all of them to change over. You could only get possibly one of those spaces to change over.
So I have a crazy question. Based on what you're saying and what you've presented, it's got to be either all 90 degree or all at an angle or all, right? Like you couldn't take those the middle 2 rows and the left-hand row and keep them at 90 degrees and then do the right-hand row at an angle.
I don't know if she looked at that per se, a mishmash, if you will, but I can certainly have her take a look at that and see. I know she went through various iterations. Normally you don't have it where you've got, you're looking at, normally it's lined up. The problem that you have is, again, that what happens is remember your aisle length, okay? So your stall length changes, or your stall width changes, okay? So your curb length. So while you're at 90 degrees on one side, you got 9 feet. If you're at a 60 degree angle, you're at 10.5 feet. So your striping is not going to line up either. So you're going to have,
Right.
you follow me, right? So, granted, looking
you would
from
add
above, it's
more
going to look a little bit different,
spaces.
but you need more width on the angle. You need more curb length on the angle. So if we were to change it, you would actually be reducing the number of cars you could fit on the other side of you, if you will. And then you don't get to pull through. Most people like to pull through the space. You can't pull through the space anymore at that point.
Well, right, but a lot of the lots have those curbs or those dividers where you can't pull through.
Mm-hmm.
So I think most people don't necessarily think about pulling through. I've certainly gotten surprised to realize there's a curb there.
Yeah, well, in the larger lots of your big box stores, I do it all the time. It's much easier with my truck to pull through the space than it is to try to maneuver around.
Well,
But
Costco's all angled well, no, in fact, they have it where if you go in that first funnel, I believe that's at 90 degrees, you circle around that against the wall is all 90 degrees. And then those other 2 aisles are angled.
I'm not familiar with Costco.
Oh.
Sorry. I don't live near but we can certainly have her take another look. But at best right now we're looking at it would be a reduction of 11. To try to get yourself back towards closer to a standard. and a width that, would be expected.
To me, I think people would be pleased just to be able to park there without all the fuss and bother rather than lament the loss of spots.
I don't know, I'm lamenting the loss of spots.
I think, yeah, especially that is like super prime, and that's much more desirable than, you know, up in, the Park Street or Playhouse. Despite, you know, it's also more difficult to park, you know, up there at Playhouse because of the width of the spaces, but, yeah, I'd say it's pretty convenient for most people.
I think this is just gonna be one of those things where it's like, people don't like the size of the spaces, but they don't wanna lose spaces, and you can't have it both ways, you know? Like, people are gonna be unhappy about either decision, so.
Right. I mean, even if you stay on the angle and you want to try to get to a uniform, you're going to be losing spaces.
Right, 100%.
I think I just counted with the new two center columns, you lose 2 spaces per column, and then but with like the right side, you lose like 6 spots, which is like significantly more than anything else. I think the angled spots would like you can probably add at least like maybe not 9, maybe not 15 spots is which is what there is now, but like maybe 14 or 13. I mean, if
To
you're
have
gonna
that
lose like a
one
couple
aisle.
spots, you'd rather have like lose like not 11. And then also on that right side, there's also 2 chargers, and I think that's like exactly where the parallel spot would be. So like, would we have to move those chargers or?
Well, yeah, you know, we would likely move that charger if we had to.
Yeah,
If, you know, that's not a, it can be moved.
Yeah.
And we can move around the lot if we needed to.
But those spots, have you thought about too, you know, like in a shopping mall, they have, you know, compact cars only, or the public parking garages, compact cars versus the others. And so maybe in that one aisle, you know, that I pointed out where the chargers are, and assuming most EVs are compact, that you could create the angle on that right-hand side aisle that would be at least along where the EVs are, compact cars, and then the other ones could be at an angle. I don't know how the striping, I guess it wouldn't match up from an aerial view, but I don't know how much people on the ground would see that.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about the aerial view. I'm more concerned about how it functions. The compact spaces are very, very difficult to police at best.
Right.
You know, we can look at again at another iteration or two and come back to you, but regardless, you're going to lose spaces.
Right.
You're at 7.5 to 8. You want to go to 9, you're gonna lose spaces. It's just gonna happen. That there has to be an acceptance at that point. You know, the spaces are maximized at present, pretty close. So it's more of a question of how many will you lose, not if you will. So it just really comes down to what your palette is at that point. But I can ask her to come back and look again and see if there's another iteration that might work for you. But it at least gives you an idea of where of the outcome.
The challenge
Yeah.
too. Yeah, no, and I
Yes. Well,
appreciate
very
that.
challenging to try to make this one work. You know, it's a little
Mhm.
inefficient, like I said. But I can certainly ask her to go back and take another look and see. But at present, this was her best rendition, you know, for the time being. We're not, I say again, we're not sold on it yet. We're not final with it, but we wanted to give you something to at least to chew on, and then we can come back next month and tell you if we found anything better or different, or we're able to come up with something a little bit, you know, where to be less spaces.
Yeah, so in the middle aisle as it's currently drawn, you know, because I think a lot of it is the flow, and as you say, you know, right now it's the painting is barely legible, so it would have to be, the arrows have to be, more prominent, and perhaps even, one-way signage or do not enter or whatever, just to keep people in the appropriate flow. Then the issue is the people coming in from Main Street, have to go across 2 bays and around to park, and they probably don't do that now.
Don't. Right now, you're coming from the outside to the inside. The layout as planned would be two-way traffic through each aisle. So you have that problem. You could come in and pull into any lane that you wanted. Is the way we have it drafted.
Right,
Is,
so that's that is the 20, okay, that is the
That's-
20. Yeah.
Each one is 24. What's laid out on the field? No. Laid out in the field is a little bit different. What's striped at present is a little bit different. And the reason why we haven't done it is because we've been toying with this thought of trying to restripe, but we haven't gotten positive direction yet. So it's the reason why the stripes haven't been redone. We can certainly have her go take another look and then come back, give you another view at your next meeting in May, if you want.
Might be worth looking at. I think that people will certainly object to the loss of spaces. They'll be happy about the, ease of parking, but I think, to Kevin's point, those losing all those diagonal spaces on the far right to 4 parallel spaces is probably going to lead to the most objections, I would imagine. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me have her go back and take another look at it. We'll come back with 3 or 4 options for you, and we'll show you exactly what what each one entails. That way you can see how it looks and how it flows for each one. And then so we can come back in early May, show you again. If you want, it's no problem at all.
Yeah.
And the Park Street lot has like those like first angled ones, and then they have all the parallel ones in back of it. So there's not like a precedent of like it has to be all the exact same.
Right. Well, and looking at this and having described the whole Costco thing, I mean, obviously it's a bigger scale, but this would be, and I'm not even, you could look at even the middle aisle as being, angled, but the way, if this were Costco, you would drive in on the left-hand side, that would all be 90 degrees against the wall, facing, where the library is all 90 degrees, but then both the aisles are at an angle.
Okay, well, let's go back and take another look and come back to you and see if there's something else that will, might strike a balance, I guess would be the best way to describe it.
Super.
Okay. You have any other questions? You all right? Or as we get closer to paving, we'll let Stacy know what's happening.
What's your thought on that? I know you told us last month, but I don't have it.
Right now, we're gathering quotes for both lots. The train station itself is out to bid, and we're gathering quotes on Locust and the lumberyard. And once we have final quotes from that, we'll go to the selectmen for approval and set a schedule out. And again, the thought originally was to take care of Locust first, while leaving the other 2 open. Try to get the train station done during the summer, and if we can get the lumberyard done between those 2, we will. The amount of work, while it's substantial, is not that time consuming. We know that some of the techniques we want to use, the contractors can't start until May anyways, so the material isn't available until May 1, I believe. So we have some time.
Yeah, but it's
Start
pretty
anyway.
quick, really, in the scheme of things. It's good.
Yeah. So like I said, we're in we'll be finalizing the quotes, hopefully bringing something to the selectmen either at their mid-April meeting or their 1st of May meeting, and then their first meeting in May, and then go from there. And I'll let Stacy, if we haven't done anything before, then I'll report back to you in May. And if we have, then I'll have Stacy reach out to you while we're working forward.
Well, Stacy, is August the least amount of people who park in all the lots? Would that be like the best time to like preferably do this?
That's the time we're looking to do the
Yeah.
train station, not the other ones.
Got it.
The train station's got a little bit more work associated with it than the Lumberyard or Locust. Going to be a little bit more time consuming for the train station itself. That's why I was trying to leave the summer months to the train station itself, and then to the other ones around it, if you will.
And I think the lumberyard will start towards the end of August when everyone starts coming back for school, and Katie could answer that a little bit better. It'll start picking up, believe it or not. So I think late July, early August is probably the least amount of
Well, that office is full all summer.
all summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's true. Yes, Board of Ed is there all summer, so we would relocate them to the portion that is already paved. So I think that, end of July, beginning of August is when it's probably the least amount, when people start coming back from, school it starts picking up slightly.
Mhm.
But again, the summertime is the best in general overall for the train stations. So I think for all our lots too, but I'd like to get Locust done because that's been on the back burner for a while. And it'll be nice to see it done.
Mhm. Right, and then, yeah, I have to give it some time too to try to get the striper in as well, so.
Yep.
I don't want to back myself into where, I'm at a loss when everyone comes back and it's not striped. Need to wait I need to wait a couple of days at least. We like to wait a week to try to let the oils come out of the pavement so that the cars don't track it back onto the striping and then dull the striping, take some of its useful life away. So I would, that has to be taken into account as well. It's not a question of being able to stripe it, stripe it that night and open it. You can, it's just it'll get dulled out rather rapidly. So that's another concern. I just don't want to be backed into August 22nd, August 25th, and everyone's coming
Right.
back for school and I can't get it striped. So, but that's our thought. So if as things unfold, we'll certainly let you know either through Stacy or I'll come back and talk you through it myself.
Stacy, do you have any thoughts on what the, fallout might be on the Morse Court situation as presented?
I think that any loss of space in general, people are not happy about, regardless of where it is. But I do know that people are not happy with the size of those spaces. We get complaints all the time that it's, people can't get in and out.
We do, that, I was wondering that. but
Yeah,
we get-
they're like, I hear people saying like they're tiny, just like I have a big car and I just can't get in and out. So my thought would be that, yes, we're losing spaces, but again, I think people will be happier since a lot of people are driving larger vehicles with the wider spaces.
Yeah,
There's always gonna be issues with losing spaces, but you have to weigh and measure which is more important, and I don't think people like being dinged, every time they park in a parking lot, which.
do you have a sense of how many occurrences there are of that, or even, bigger dents than dings?
No, I think PD would have more of a sense, because most people would go to them with reporting it. But I do have people that have called and said, do we have cameras in the area? My car was dented, and so, But no, I can't tell you what the rate is because it's not consistent.
Sure.
But, and I think a lot of people would probably more go to PD than they would come to us first. So,
Is there any way you can ask the parking police to check like or to like note when there's like a spot that like seems like too thin or like someone parked in a line because the spot's too thin or and like it just seems like a spot's not being parked in it because there's two cars are too close together
oh, I will
just to
tell
get
you,
a better sense.
it's a common occurrence where people straddle the line. Now, I can't tell you if it's because they just are quick and they're not paying attention, or it's because that they're too close. But yes, some instances, it's because they didn't want to park too close to the next car, so they moved over, which sets a chain of events. One car moves over the line, the next car's gonna move over the line, the next car's gonna move over the line. So, but yes, it is a common occurrence.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would just be good to have like a sense of like how many spots are lost per day versus like if we're already losing like 4 spots, losing 5 spots permanently, so we have like more dense parking, then I think that would be benefit.
I can tell you that why I don't see obstructing 2 spaces every day, but it is something that happens. It does happen often, not frequently, but it does happen often. I mean, I don't know, but I won't say it's an everyday occurrence where
Yeah.
people are straddling the lines, but it will happen. So, but yeah, I can have them keep an eye out and maybe see what they're seeing. Usually if somebody does that, they are ticketed for that, so. I would be able to pull the ticket numbers up for that violation.
Thank you.
One last thing and we'll let you go, Tiger.
Sure.
Once this is said and done, what is the typical communications policy or protocol or approach? And who generates it?
You're talking as when we're
To
gonna,
the public,
yeah.
like, and saying, okay, this is happening.
well, this case, it's a little bit different, because we have to grind out the existing lines. So I've got to get in a lot to grind them out to then stripe it back. Normally on a restriping, you wouldn't even know they're coming in the middle of the night. They say, Tiger, we want to come Sunday morning at 2 a.m. So have at it. Sunday morning, 2 a.m. We at that point in time, I get the highway department to barricade it off late so that nobody actually parks in there inadvertently. We've had that happen. So a space can't be marked. In this case, we'd have to determine when I could get him in and then talk to Stacy about trying to see, okay, how much time does he need? How much space does he need? Can he come at off hours to grind the lines? And then they have to come back and lay it out and then restripe. So it's not this is not an easy fix. Not an easy change, if you will. It's basically 3 operations. They grind it, they'll come and lay it out. Once it's laid out, people can park on it because of the layout. You can actually park within a line, so you can kind of figure out what it is, and then they come and stripe it. So I would work with the striping company and hopefully try to do it on consecutive nights, or maybe try to get the grinding and the laying out done at the exact same time, and then come back and stripe it the next night. We
Got
want
it.
at least one night. I want at least one moment in there in the middle to be able to verify that we like the layout. Right? That's one of the things that we want. But at that
And
point,
And
we'll
then you
figure that out.
number it at the same time you're laying it out, and the parking machines like reflect that, like how does, you know what I'm saying? Because I'll go in, like the current programming is probably has the old slanted lots, slanted spaces and the old numbering, so that's got to be coordinated as well. Unless you're going to give free parking, which might be the solution for the period of time that this is all happening.
That's happened in the past. We can look at that.
With that.
It'll be, they'll start at 1 and number through. I don't know if it's going to matter. We just won't have
Oh, right.
spaces up to
Yeah.
88. We'll just have spaces
Right.
to 77 in this case, right?
Right.
Right. At that point, you should be fine. we'll, again, that's a coordination with the striper to make sure that, and there's a lot of discussions to happen between now and then. Any layout, like I said, I've still got to go back to P and Z, so there's time there as well. So it's we have quite a bit of time before anything's actually going to happen on the lot. But we can come back and tell you how we're going to do it, or I can have Stacy report back to you. I just want to talk to the striper and see exactly what his capabilities are of an evening.
Super.
All
Well,
right.
thank you. This has
No
been
problem.
just great to get your insight and attention. I think we all really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Like I said, we'll go back to the drawing board a little bit, see if we can't be a little creative, and then come back to you in May and with other thoughts. All right.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you very much. You guys have a good night.
Hey, you
Thanks,
too.
Thanks for
guys.
coming.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks, Tiger.
All right, that was really helpful. Thank you, Stacy, for arranging both of Tiger's appearances here before our commission. It's been really illuminating and helpful. I appreciate it. I guess we're moving on to business permits.
Yep. So, our business permits are coming up for renewal. Our permit year is of July 1st through June 30th permit year. So we usually vote on the permits because I have to get them before the Board of Selectmen for approval. It is my recommendation, it is my recommendation to keep our premium business permits, which are the only permits that have a fee associated with them. And those permits are in the Morse Court lot and in the Park Street lot. The same, no change. With it, it's a flat rate fee of $438, and then you add the sales tax, which is $27.81. That would bring the permit cost to $465.81. So that would be my recommendation, not to have a rate increase for our premium business permit lots. But again,
So say again, it was Morse Court and
Morse Court and Park Street are
Park
currently
Street.
our only two lots that have our premium business permits in.
So just, circling back to that conversation we just had, and we're losing 11 spots, are we going to lose a proportionate number of business spots, or are we going to keep those the same and lose? How is that determined?
So
in the
right now, and
proposal?
again, this would be something to be discussed. Right now, in the Morse Court lot, we have 36 business permits out. They are not assigned a certain spot. They are integrated with within the lot. So anybody with a business permit could just find a space, and they just don't have to pay for that space because they already paid
Have
for.
paid.
Do we have
Uh,
a sense of how frequently they're used and how much we have, like, how much capacity?
I am going to say the business permits are used pretty much every,
So it's
Every
safe
day.
to say that
at 36
maybe Monday through
spaces.
Friday.
You're gonna
36
have the
or-
majority.
Okay.
Maybe there might be a few that, of course, vacations, somebody comes in later, but I'm gonna say the majority of the 36 are there
Okay.
on a daily basis. So,
So that affects
yes,
people parking for merchant shopping.
yes,
Proportion of larger.
But it's still 11 spaces, so 36 from 88 is 52 and 36 from 77 is 41.
Yeah.
So it's a net loss of 11 spaces to the public. Yeah.
But maybe if we have to have a loss of spaces, we could have fewer business permits there and make up for it a little bit,
Right.
a little wiggle room. But then we would have to take a space from someone, right? Yeah,
which might be a,
right.
it might be a
Well,
tough.
I mean, who's got those
Yeah.
spaces, right? So I would imagine you get 36 spaces and you've got whatever direction, the south side of Elm Street. And then you've got merchants that are on the north side of Elm Street or the east side of Elm Street, whatever direction. So of those that would have to be reassigned, you could assign them to the Park Street lot versus the, you know, and it wouldn't be horrible.
Yeah, well, we can move them up to Park Street, though Park Street, we have 60 permits out. So Park Street, we're kind of coming to capacity as well for our business permits.
Well, we're gonna need to restripe it too. I mean, I was just there the other day. It was impossible.
Yeah.
Absolutely impossible.
As far as trying to
Parking.
get
I mean,
spot, yeah.
the spots that were there were, you know, I could not pull my car into. I
Yeah.
might have been able to, and then had to climb out my back, you know, over my back seat and out my back door or something crazy. But yeah, it's not a good situation.
That's why I
Really?
think the loss of spaces, yes, nobody's happy about the loss of spaces. Again, when we lost on Elm Street, nobody's happy about the loss of spaces, but I think making those spaces wider, given the type of
Mhm.
vehicle people drive now, is important.
Although we are going to gain some spaces based on what Tiger said last month, you know, on Elm Street, which
Yes.
is why, you know, I was sort of thinking it would be nice to come up with a sort of a blanket communication strategy and plan that we can communicate and publish that shows people sort of the net and what the positive aspects of this are.
Well, we can certainly put it on the website, and there's communications that the town gives out. There's newsletters now that the town
Mhm.
puts together. So once a plan is set in motion, and once we can definitely get that information out to people.
So
So,
basically, the way it is now, it's like if we're losing 11 spaces in Morse, that's 11 public spaces. Like, we don't have a system to say like, you 4 businesses don't get your space back, right? So that's 11 to the public.
Yep.
Does the public generally have a sense that, you know, how many spaces are there now? 88, and there's, what did we just say, 30 some odd?
36.
36.
36 permits out.
36, so more than a third of the spots in there are business permits. I feel like people are gonna freak about that too. I
Well,
think that's why I'm saying, like, Nancy, I agree. I think like
We
the
could-
communications on this is gonna be really important, because I think.
And then we could revisit it again, and maybe, you know, there's a couple of different ways to look at it. We can look at it as a lottery, everybody now, okay, well, we wanna go, because we're losing 11 spaces, we're going to have to take away some of the business spaces. And we'll notify all the businesses and say, okay, we have, you know, now we're only giving 20 spaces, the first 20 people that gets their applications in. Maybe a lot, maybe some businesses have more than other businesses. Maybe we cut back on them and say, listen, you're only allowed a certain amount per business as well.
Minimum,
I can
yeah.
absolutely, right, I can absolutely look into. At the time, people wanted it, they were willing to pay for it, and we were offering it. But now if we start running into trouble, we can absolutely, again, as the parking commission, we can change, we can revisit, we could rethink and say, okay, your business is only allowed, you know, a certain amount in our premium lot. You know, we're limiting it to whatever, 7, 5. You know,
Do you
2,
find,
3
what
businesses.
types of businesses are using those? Office space?
Some are office, some are, shop owners that are close to their, like,
To their employees?
or their employees, or for themselves if they're the business owners.
Yeah,
So, that one varies a little bit.
yeah. I mean, I would think that the shop owners would also see the value in turning spots over to the public. It's in their own interest too.
You would like to think so, that's why we offer center free, and
Yeah.
that's why they get the premium business. Yeah, unfortunately, you would like to think so.
Do you think
The thing
people
is
who
that, I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, and the thing is we found that they were utilizing the spaces went anyway, so they were paying for the spaces. So it wasn't like they were not using the lot, and I'm talking about the employees, they were using the lot and they were taking up the space, but paying for it. So when we were offering them the permits, they now had the space that they were already utilizing anyway. So it wasn't like that we were bringing them from someplace else and now they're in the Morse court. They were there to begin with, so it just made it a little easier for them to park.
I have actually two questions now that you said that the employees are paying for it. How much is we just increased the Morse Court lot, like in the fall? Did we?
The
I don't
hour,
remember. The hourly, yeah.
yes,
And what was that from what to what?
$1 to $1.25 an hour.
Okay, so they're saving a lot of money, even
Yeah.
at $465.
Yep,
So I mean, we can maybe look at like supply and demand, increasing the price, maybe have less business owners who want to pay that, decreases like the amount of spots. And the other thing is, I would be worried that like you also don't like you kick people out of Morse Court and they're just going to park on L as like business owners and like employees because it's free.
yep, and that's where the problem always lied. And that's why we offered the free permits in Center and Locust to get them off of the streets. And again, there were still employees, there are employees right now that have a Center and Locust permit and continue to park close to their business. Whether it's the Morse Court lot or the Park Street lot or on the street. Unfortunately, that's exactly what they're doing. So yes, and if we lose the spaces, you can revisit the cost and see. There's several ways to look at it and revisit it.
What hours do they ticket in there? Like 9 to 5 kind of thing?
9 to 3.
9 to 3, so 6 hours. So if you have like 2 turnovers of 3 hours at like $4, yeah, I mean, they're getting a great deal in there, right? We're losing
Yeah.
a lot of money on that.
Yeah. But they felt back then that the spaces were already being utilized, so like our commuters, we'll offer them a permit at the rate that we were offering at the telephone lot at the time and the other portion of the Park Street lot, so.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, I think I've brought this up again, but, or in the past rather, but why can't we convert some of those spots over to the lumberyard?
To business permits,
To the business permits.
when we exhaust the wait list, if there are still spaces, we can absolutely revisit that. But right now, we still have a wait list, which I'm going through. But
we know that it's not ever 100% full. I mean, I guess I understand there's.
But I don't think people will be happy if you start offering business permits in that lot while there is currently a wait list. I think you need to exhaust the wait list first. And then whatever spaces are available after that. And depending on how many, we could revisit the business permits there. But to offer the business permits before we get through the wait list, I think that there will be a lot of unhappy people. And again, I am moving down on the wait list, but now I have to be careful of how quickly I move down because they're gonna be shutting off half of the lumberyard during the summer months, so I need to move people to the lower section, so I just have to make sure that at one point we stop for a little bit until it's done and then we revisit it, we start again.
Yeah.
So it's all a little bit of a juggling act, but not too difficult. So yeah, that's my feeling of just keeping them the same. And again, I don't think, if I understood Tiger correctly, it's probably not gonna happen this permit year where those spaces are gonna be changed over. I could be wrong, but it would
Didn't
be up to you. on how you move forward with this.
Well, it would happen, I mean, the paving or the restriping of Morse Court is gonna happen in 2024 in August.
No,
No,
no, no. Locust, Lumberyard, and Railroad, I believe. I don't
Right.
think Morse Court unless I
Okay.
misunderstood something. Did I misunderstand something?
I think there wasn't a time given because we'd have to get P and Z to approve it, even just
Correct.
the 90
Right,
degree.
right, right,
So
okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
right.
But I think we could
Another-
still make a change. You could still make a change to the business permits now, right? I don't know. It's up to you guys, but it just seems silly to have to wait for a whole other year. It's now 15 months away.
Yeah, so I am, whatever, you want to increase the prices to see what the demand is? Do you want me to change the amount and just,
Well, I mean, we essentially had an increase to our, residents or visitors, of 25%.
Yeah, we should match it. And, business folks can still park at the outer lots, right? For free.
absolutely, absolutely, yep,
Quite frankly, it's a convenience to be close, but it's not a necessity compared to shoppers or commuters.
yep. Yep,
So what's that number, 465 plus, I mean, that's plus 25%, it sounds a lot more onerous than,
581 right now, so we could do it on the base price of 438. That's the base price without the sales tax.
okay, so 438 times 0.2, oh, sorry. That's $109. That's pretty steep.
Sends a
Goes
message.
from 438 to 547.50 times 0.0635 is 34.76, 77. So it goes to 465 to 582.
Prime real estate.
Yeah, you're right about that.
I mean, it
If I had
seems to me
my-
that the
if I had
numbers
my
should start
way.
at the 5.
Like Elm Street should cost that much too.
Now, remember, this is a recommendation. It goes before the Board of Selectmen for their approval.
Right.
And again, we arrive at that figure because we increased the public or hourly, the
By 25%.
temporary. Yeah.
And increased demand when we lose 11 spaces at some point in the next year. Right.
Right. Because the goal here is to hopefully reduce the amount of business permits. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to float it.
Do you
I
want to
second.
float the 25%? Is that what you said?
25 on the 438, raise it
438.
25%.
And this is just for Morse Court, right? The others
Yeah.
stay the same.
So just increase the Morse Court one and keep Park Street.
Well, did Park Street go up 25 cents as well?
Yes, yes. All the lots did.
Well, then I
And
think,
yeah.
I
I think
think-
everything but Locust and Center. Sorry.
I mean, what do you guys think? I think if we pass through a 25% increase to our, residents and visitors, that we should pass through the same. I mean, they do have the option of free parking. Let's not forget that. And
Right, you
maybe,
don't always have that option in town.
and maybe it will reduce the number, you know, we talked about reducing the overall all number of those paid business permits, and capping them. But if we're gonna ultimately lose spaces in the Playhouse and in Park Street.
Right, and Morris Court. So, yeah.
I don't
This is
remember offhand what the gain was on Elm Street. I know he said it was like 8.
Five,
Five.
maybe, somewhere in single digit.
I think, yeah, the gain of 5 on Elm Street.
You know, and people are excited about that gain of 5. And
Mhm.
here we are discussing, you know, a loss of,
11.
yeah, to offset what everybody's excited about, so.
Yeah, but again, they're gonna gain in convenience and the friction of trying to park in those spaces, as
Oh my
Nancy, you were
God,
saying.
it's
It's just,
just
to me, that's the worst of the two evils.
Yeah, I agree.
Stacy, I have to redial in. I have to go get in my car, so I'm gonna drop off and I'll redial in.
Sure, not a problem.
So Stacy, well, Katie, what are your thoughts on this proposal?
Well, I'm still wrapping my head around that we have these business permits. I came in early
She
with
came in
Stacy.
early
I didn't know they existed. I didn't know that there were business people parking in those lots. And, you know, years ago, I know the parking commission did a study that placed a value on each parking space, and it was something like $17,000 a year in sales or something. And whatever the number was, it just made me acutely aware that we can't cavalierly take away a parking space because that is dollars in the merchant's pocket. So it
Mhm.
should be discussed, it should be, we should take in the merchant standpoint, shoppers, everybody. So I'm still sort of digesting this, but my off the cuff feeling is that if the public is losing parking spaces, I feel that we should proportionately be cutting back on the business permits also. But like we said, how do we do that? We can't just take a permit away from someone that had one.
But
So there's
you could-
nuance.
You could limit the amount that each business, I do know one business has a particularly large amount. So you can, it used to be at the telephone lot, they would limit each business to only 3. But again, when we first started this and we offered it, not everybody jumped on it, so the people that started jumping on them when we offered the amount of spaces, we gave it to the people that wanted it, but again, nothing was set in stone if we wanted to change the policy because we are going and losing the 11 spaces. We can say to businesses, okay, you know, 5 max, 6 max, you know.
How many spaces does our largest client of the business permits have?
I'm gonna say at least 10.
That's a lot.
Oh,
But
And they're
they
paying a
want
lot.
it.
They're
They're
paying a
paying
lot,
for it,
yeah.
they wanted it, nobody else was asking for it at the time.
well, yeah, but
Wow.
maybe you should
So they're
remind them
1/3.
that it's worth $17,000 in revenue versus the $460 or $38 they're paying.
I
So,
think a lot of businesses would like to pay that money for parking for their own customers. Yeah.
and I, that's the first I've heard, Katie. Stacy, are you familiar with this study? It sounds like something maybe the chamber might have done.
And I think the commission had the prior commissions did a lot of research because at one point, they were looking to tier the lumberyard, so I think they were looking into what the cost would be what the cost of each space would be. So I have heard of this in the past. So
I
yeah.
wouldn't mind taking a look at that and seeing, you know, especially as we undergo, you know, this sort of wholesale rather, you know, across a period of time, change / enhancements to our infrastructure and availability of spaces, that we should maybe take a look at that again.
Yeah, and you've got to factor in the cost of maintenance and construction and not just the benefits it provides to the local business.
Although it's interesting.
Anyway, it sounds like there's kind of a perhaps another part of the proposal on the table then, like, do we want to increase the cost accordingly, but also cap the number? 3 sounds more than reasonable,
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and 10 is literally like almost a third of the total permits for businesses at Morris Court right now.
Because ultimately, in a perfect world on paper, you squeeze the businesses out of the center lots, get more customers parking there, and then the businesses would have spaces freed up in the outer lots to use. So,
right. And it would absorb, all of a sudden you'd be gaining spots. I mean, think about it. If you're going from 88 to 77, but you take away 20, you're actually gaining.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or,
Do we also want to reduce again the number of business permits in that lot? Because that lot does have a waiting list, so,
Of business permits.
for business permits, so, if we could decrease it per business, but we can also decrease it overall, so I don't go down on a wait list.
How many are on the wait list?
9.
Are they existing permit holders or are they new?
No, they have it in either Center or Locust, more likely Center, I'm trying to.
Oh, I see. So they just
Or
want to
they're
get, both,
using a lot and they're paying on a daily basis.
right?
Um,
Oh, I
but
see.
they wanted a permit.
my gut says let's try the increase and the cap on the number per business, and see what that does.
Okay.
And then next round,
Yeah.
go further if we need to, because then the striping will happen and we're going to have to do something. So that's sort of the last tool we have.
And remind me,
And
I
would we
agree.
keep it at 36?
No, well, we don't know.
Well, because if there's
Right,
9 on,
if I just limit the business to 3, I will have a wait list of people who are not, who can fill those spaces. So that's the question I have. Do we want to decrease the amount of permits in that lot overall? So I don't refill the spaces that I will take away from the businesses that currently have it, because we want to limit the amount there.
How many
Would you-
businesses have more than 3 permits besides the 10 business?
Oh,
Like if I was on the wait list and I learned that one business had 10 spaces, I'd be mad.
but again, at the time, there was nobody else waiting for them, and we had the space, so we offered it.
So the wait list is just in the last year then?
I would say the last permit cycle, yeah, so the
How much
last year,
attrition is there? I have to think not much.
no,
Yeah, so I mean, who would give those away?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
gold.
yeah, and not many people turn over. So, there are not, I'm gonna say, the most that some of the businesses have are 3. That this one particular business has a large amount. So,
would this be like any like undue hardship on them? Like, do you think like, do they use all 10 spots every day?
I believe so, yes.
Is it a retail or an office space?
It's an office.
Okay.
Again, we don't know yet what center is now that the construction's gone, but there's got to be spaces there. Yeah.
Yes. We haven't had, the only hardship is making people walk, which a lot of people don't want to do.
So, yeah, I don't know how you do it, but if we have some attrition because of the increase in cost and then the business cap, we don't want to fill those spaces that are lost. So what's the verbiage or the mechanism by which we
Would we
sort
like
of
limit
cap?
it to like 25 spots instead of 36?
You could
Or like
decrease by the
20,
11 if you want, and then I could,
28?
take a look at it and just see.
Or as as many people as give up those spots, you're just not gonna fill them, right? So if
Yeah.
5 go away, 5 don't renew, or
Right, we could
then
do
those
that.
never come
just
back.
to- Right, just limit the businesses to 3, but don't, and whatever that brings us down to, we are not going to fill those spaces. That probably would be the best for now,
I like that.
and we will gain some back. And then we could revisit it again if we wanted to.
Once we have the design.
Cap on business 3. Business.
So 25% increase, cap on 3 business permits, and then will not refill them, will not refill the
Yeah, we'll not move on,
spots.
right, we'll not refill the spaces.
So we're getting 7 back already, right?
We'll get close to it, maybe 5, yeah, maybe 7, yes, right, if we limit it to 3, so yeah. And then I'll look into it and see who else.
Stacy, before you came to us tonight with the recommendation to keep the business permits flat, had you gotten feedback within town hall about that, or is this going to be really swimming upstream?
Well, I was asked if I was going to recommend an increase, and I said no, and it seemed to be, people were happy with that. But again, I'm not the final say on it. It was just a recommendation because I didn't know how you guys felt about it. But if you're looking at with a different perspective, again, you make the recommendations, they might split it when it goes to the Board of Selectmen. Or they might say no altogether, to everything. Again, you are making the recommendations to them on why you feel, that there should be an increase.
I think if you gave them the context of like, in the next 18 months, we're looking at a loss of somewhere in the order of 11 spaces, something like that. We're
Right.
preparing for that.
And the increase in the fees to shopper.
Consumers. Yeah.
And overall, it still probably is less overall for the business permit holders. If they utilize it every day for 6, 7
Absolutely.
hours a day, 8 hours a day.
What we don't know is what the, sort of I mean, it is a commodity, right? So what is what's the maximum capacity that the lot is being used, and what are those periods of time, days of the week, hours of the day? So you can
I
really
can
make an
look at,
educated.
get back to you and see what the usage is by our business holders. But
Not by, well, the whole thing, also,
Yeah.
of course, court, yeah.
Yeah.
Just because, as Marley pointed out earlier, there's money left on the table by charging the businesses a far reduced price than what you could be getting on an hourly basis if those parking spots were turning.
Right.
And to the extent that they were then going to be, 75% full, 80% full, whatever that number is, I have no idea.
Morse Court is our busiest lot.
Yeah.
It's our busiest lot.
People trying to find a space they could fit in.
Yeah. Now that they'll be able to fit in, it'll probably be the even better utilized.
Yeah, I'd like to see it with those angles on the right, because I'd hate to, that's a huge loss of spots, and, to reallocate where the EVs are. It's nice to have them all in one spot. I don't know. I'll be curious to see what they come back with.
Okay, so I am gonna recommend to the Board of Selectmen a 25% increase on the base rate of 438, and then I'll add in the 6.35% sales tax. I figured it out. I will do a double check, but I think that will come out to 582.27. And then a cap on the number of permits per business. We're gonna go to 3 with a no moving down on any wait list or refilling those spaces because of the potential loss of spaces in the Morse Court lot.
And
Perfect.
do we need to vote on that?
Yes, if you would like, that would be fun. Yes.
Do we? All right, well,
Motion for that recommendation, yeah.
I vote in favor.
Nancy,
Drew seconds. Kevin thirds.
Drew.
I'm raising my hand in the car.
Marley, it's unanimous.
And just to, I know, I shouldn't say I know anything. I'm going to believe that you guys want to continue with the center and locust lot free permit program. And the one other lot to also add, I forgot to put this down on the agenda, is Richmond Hill is also free permits. And I'm guessing that you would like to continue with that. It is a very good program and people do utilize it. So,
Is there a wait list for those 3 lots or for like any specific one or?
no, so basically with the free permits, we offer it to anyone, but we can't guarantee a space. We don't want to start capping the free permits because we're hoping that a lot of the hourly workers don't overlap each other, so there's always spaces available. So I don't want to say, okay, we're capping it at a certain amount, and then I can't give people who really want to utilize it the permit. So I offer them the permit, but we'll say that it's not always a guarantee of a space. But if you have a permit in Center School and there's not a space available, you're more than welcome to try Locust or Richmond Hill. So, and that has seemed to work very well, especially with the construction in the library. So, but it is a good program and I would recommend keeping that.
Do we need to vote on that too, to keep it?
Why not? So, motion to continue with the free program. Free permit program in Central Locust and Richmond.
I'll
Nancy,
second.
okay, Nancy. Kevin. Great. Okay,
Super. All righty.
number 4.
So additional discussion, we need to vote on recommending that all of our appellees be present at the monthly meeting if they are to be allowed to appeal the ticket. And Marley, we wanted to wait for you on this. It's something we've gone back and forth on, is to my understanding. I seem to recall that was it was a thing, it was a standing thing, but it turns out, you know, we let people, and I think we should have a provision for people who can't make a specific meeting, maybe give them 1 or 2 other meetings to you know, appeal in person. But I, for one, believe, like a speeding ticket or any kind of a traffic infraction that you are called to court for, you know, you need to show up in order to be heard. And so the thought,
Sorry. I would just say, if you don't mind me, just jumping in for a second, Connecticut general statutes for the hearing procedures, so the Connecticut state statutes, it does say in section E that a person wishing to contest his liability shall appear at the hearing in person or by means of an electronic equipment and may present evidence in his behalf. And then it goes on to say, if a person fails to appear, the hearing officer may enter an assessment by default against him upon a finding of proper notice and liability under applicable statutes or ordinances. So basically, it's saying that if you do not appear, it is an admission of
Right.
guilt. So
That's for the
yeah.
parking or traffic? Yeah,
that's for traffic.
right, right. And that's my understanding. Not that I've ever had a speeding ticket. But, but, so yeah, I mean, I think why not? It lessens our burden. You know, we have been more than fair, I think, in hearing people's appeals, and, we welcome them. But in order for us to really adjudicate them, they need to also show up that they're, sincere about it.
Yeah, I agree 100% with everything that's just been said. And I think, yeah, if we want to offer them like one additional meeting, there is a Zoom option, right?
Right, so, and usually they have to be heard within a certain period of time. When the parking commission met every 2 months, that was really the max, but I believe they really should be heard within, I have to look, I think it should be, it's like within 30 days, but I wouldn't do it more than one more meeting.
Yeah, you could do.
Right. Yeah. No, exactly. I agree with that too.
I think just even,
I don't
with
even know if you
COVID
offer that. I think you just wait and see if they like ask, right?
Right, if they
You
ask, but they only have one time to,
One free out of jail free card.
yeah.
Right. Hi, Tucker.
Yeah, I'm quite frankly, I'm shocked that you don't have to be there. The assumption was that you did on my end.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I always thought so too. And then and then it turns out we were, adjudicating people who weren't there. So I just wanted to get that clarified. And I do think, Stacy, that it was helpful for you to provide that notice, on the bottom of your email, or I don't know how you want to do it in terms of,
will
whether it's
put it
on
on the
your
bottom.
standard signature or on the, have a thing, a cut and paste on every response to every appeal. But, we need to spell out specifically that
They
is
must appear, yeah.
right.
It's
And you might
only-
want to send us that language once again, just so that we can see it, and it needs to be amended so that we say you have the window of X to, if you cannot mail, you have one, you have one opportunity to, extend the meeting due to, or, to defer the
cannot
meeting
make
due
it,
to
right.
extenuating circumstances. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put it together and send it out.
And do we need to determine like when this is, sort of becoming official, or is it official as of April 3rd, or?
I think it's as official as soon as you make the motion for the next meeting, right? You're all in agreement, somebody makes the
I think it would
motion
be any tickets that are received.
after this meeting.
Right.
Correct, yeah,
Okay, right.
yeah, it would be anything moving forward for the next meeting.
So does somebody want to make a motion that as of April 4th, 2024, any appellate, to a parking violation must appear in person in order to be heard? And
Sounds
that-
like you want to make the motion.
you know what, I've been like raising my hand about stuff, but then I'm thinking to myself, I'm not even sure. That,
You
know.
make the motion and then somebody seconds it. and
Okay,
then we
I'll
vote.
make the motion, and I gotta read, I have it over there, the Roberts rules. But,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'll make that motion that as of, April 4th, 2024, any appellate or appellee to a parking violation in the town of New Canaan must be present at a subsequent parking commission meeting in order for their violation to be heard on appeal. I think that's correct. Do I have a second? Or do I have a,
I second that motion and then I guess we could vote, right?
Yeah,
Unanimous,
All in favor?
unanimous.
all right. Okay,
Oh, sorry. I think I was on mute. One thing for that, and I don't know if this is important for the minutes, but I might change it to
not a subsequent meeting, but the subsequent meeting. Right? Just so people don't think they could come in like 2 or 3 months if that suits
Well,
them.
right, but then, I do feel like we need to give them a window of X number of days from from the date of the violation, like, let's say, it's April 2nd. And the next meeting is April 3rd, right? Like I don't think we just give them the day. I think we need
No,
to, maybe
normally
it's,
with something like that, I would put it to the May meeting. Because I already have the agenda out and everybody is on the agenda. So if the agenda is not created and I can tell this person, okay, the next parking commission is May 6th, let's just say.
right,
And we haven't put the agenda and there's a good amount of time before that, they should be actually coming to that May 6th meeting unless they say, oh, I'm not gonna be here. Then I would say, okay, you can
Right.
only move it to the June meeting. But if it's the agenda's created and it's way too close to the meeting, they would automatically go to the next meeting.
okay. But I do think, people might be having a baby or, getting married or having whatever. So, there could be something that occurs, as it often does. So I think we should give them that opportunity, to defer once.
Defer the meeting one more month out. Perfect. Okay. I got that down?
Yay. All righty. So I think that's it, right? Oh, no, we got your report, Stacy.
Yes, so you had a couple of questions for me. I think Kevin mostly, a couple of questions for me at the last meeting that I thought I would answer for you. I think the first question was in regards to the railroad fund and the town maintaining our stations. I think somebody asked, how does the other towns handle their state lots, their state train stations? So I did ask Tiger, and he said that every town has an agreement with the state to maintain their stations, and the state-owned property under their jurisdiction. However, he doesn't know how each town does the accounting for it. Our town created the railroad fund, so that's how we keep accounting to it. But every town works differently. But the answer to that question basically is yes, every town will oversee their state-owned property, or the state property that has the train station in there, whichever way they deem best for their town to maintain it. So that was that one question that was presented to me. The other one, Kevin, I think you asked what the contingency was in the parking fund.
Yep.
So basically, what that is I recommend, or I figure out what I think is gonna go into the parking fund from our permits. Okay, but they put that amount, it's really not available yet, it's not there in the account. But they put it into a contingency fund so that just in case those funds need to be utilized for something, the availability is in that contingency account, so it could be used for whatever is needed, paving or anything like that. If they didn't expense it out or make it available, you couldn't use the funds for anything. So that's how it was explained to me on what the contingency account is
Within the railroad fund,
within the parking fund.
within the parking.
So,
And who's that? Who's they? Is that like Parks and, or is that like the highway department or?
selectmen, if, let's say, if Tiger goes to the selectmen for paving, they would make that recommendation and say you can utilize that.
The
that
amount would
contingency.
dictate what could be used. If
Yeah.
if it's something under $10,000, which is unlikely,
Right,
the first selectman can just sign off on that, but if it's beyond that, then it would have to go through the board of selection approval process.
but it is
Got it.
put in that fund so that it is available for use, should it be needed. And the last question I think you had for me, Kevin, is having to do with the railroad fund and the banking and transaction fees. Why the actual in 2023 was so high in comparison to what I budgeted. And what happened in the middle of 23 was the finance department changed where the pay by phone transaction fees were coming from and started to take it out of the banking and transaction fee account. It was a distribution, it's more finance to explain to you, but it increased that banking and transaction fee for 2023. So it really isn't an actual number. It's going to balance itself out, but they just started reallocating the money from that account to pay the banking and the pay by phone invoices. What happened was before they started doing it, I actually put in my budget for 2024. So I was basing it on pre-COVID amount of banking and transaction fees because the train station started picking up. So I used that pre-COVID number. For 2025, I have readjusted it to balance it out now that the pay by phone transactions invoices are being taken out of that. So I've increased that amount, so it should balance itself out. So overall, it should straighten itself out moving forward. So that's the answer to that one.
Cool. Thank you.
Very good. So that is all I have to
Thank you,
report.
Stacy. Do we have any other questions, items to think about for the future meeting? Kevin, you'll do the minutes and send them to Stacy and we'll get them out in advance of.
No, I'll do the minutes. I'll
Oh.
just send it to him or both of you for your review, and then Kevin, all you would have to do is, actually, you're gonna sign off on the final minutes for
March.
the meeting.
You
Yeah.
probably need to come in and go sign those in the town clerk's
Okay.
office.
Oh, okay.
Should I bring a copy in, or should I just
She'll have a copy
go to?
there. She'll ask you to sign the official copy that goes in the book.
So it's
I would
only
let
the
them know
final
you're
minutes.
coming when you're coming in.
Yeah.
That-
Okay.
yeah, just because if they don't have them ready or if someone's not there, just tell them you're coming in and you'll sign any minutes that need to be signed since you've been secretary.
And it's only the final minutes, not
The
the
final,
draft
minute,
minutes.
not the draft, right?
So the draft is all put together and you can review. I'll get that wording together for the appeals and I'll send it out to you guys.
Right. Actually, I have a question. What is the process of us having, sort of, agreeing to change the business permit protocol? Where does it go from here?
So now I have to give that information to Tucker and she will put it on the next Board of Selectmen meeting.
Okay.
And then I will go before the Board of Selectmen and share with
You
them.
will present it as a recommendation of the
Yep,
parking
the
commission
commission.
that this changes
Yep.
and then they would vote on it.
And then they would vote on it.
All righty. I would also like to suggest that we unearth that parking commission report that Katie had referenced earlier and look at that and look at the date of it and think about, perhaps refielding it in some way. I'm sure everything has changed and it would be interesting in light of all of the proposed changes and enhancements that we have that information available to us. I think it could help us.
I will take a look and see what is, I know it was an old, do you remember?
I saw the figure last summer,
Okay,
but I don't remember where I saw it. It
Sorry.
might have been a New Canaanite article. I don't know. I just
Okay.
remember looking and then finding it. It might have even been a comment on an article. I don't know.
okay.
I'll see what I
take a
can
look
do
at-
though.
I'll take a look at what we have on. Cause I
Yeah.
know that it was reviewed a couple of times and looked into.
All righty. Well, thank you, everyone. Our next meeting is on Wednesday, May 1st, May Day, 2024, 7 p.m. So I look forward to hearing and seeing all of you then.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
The
you so
meeting
much.
is adjourned. It is now official. It is 8:31.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye,
Take care.
Vera. Bye-bye.
Bye.